All right, everybody, how are you? It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash live here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. Now, normally we do this over the phone, and today we're doing it, of course, on YouTube right now. We're live on YouTube. We have ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz hanging out with us this afternoon. Jason, welcome in, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me. And I love these non-traditional ways to do it. Like, this is the coolest part of 2020. We don't usually get to see each other. Now we do. I love it.
Yeah, and it only took someone driving through a poll to allow this to happen. So I guess thank you to whoever, but there you go.
That's commitment right there.
Speaking of commitment, the Browns were not committed to anything other than losing this past Sunday. Congratulations to your Raiders, but that was an ugly game. That was not a pretty game, but the Raiders, you predicted it. We were both wrong, though. We expected a high-scoring affair. That was definitely not it. A very ugly football game, but a win's a win for your Raiders and another loss for the Browns.
Yeah, well, and in all fairness, I already had the hoodie on. I'm not trying to wear a Raiders hoodie to troll anybody. That's normal wear for me. No, I thought, look, and we were definitely wrong about the score. When I saw the weather in the morning, I really thought that was advantage Cleveland for a couple of reasons. I mean, controlling the line of scrimmage is something that most teams should be able to do against that Raiders defensive front. Not particularly good there. And then conversely, the opposite way, the Raiders offensive line has been so decimated. I struggled to see a path to victory when the weather looked awful. And that, to me, is the biggest surprise that, frankly, not only that the Raiders were able to run the ball down Cleveland's throat, yes, but conversely, the fact that Cleveland wasn't able to do that to Vegas was really stunning to me, because I don't think very highly of most of the defensive line for the Raiders or the linebackers when it comes to stopping the run this year. And they showed up in this one, which was a bit of a surprise.
Kev.
Oh, I didn't know he was ready. So we're week to week with Baker Mayfield and everything in the NFL, man. So where are you at with Baker this week?
That's a really good question. I mean, like, and to be fair, you guys, like, honestly, Raiders fans are the same way with Derek Carr. And
Okay.
it is funny to me how all I have to do is go on social media and say Derek Carr is awesome or Derek Carr is trash. And either way, I can just spend the rest of the day getting reactions. So I think they're similar, though, in some ways. Like, some weeks they're great, and then they make you think you got your guy. And then the next week you turn around and you're like, well, what is that? Now, this was a game that was particularly difficult to throw the ball in. I don't think he got a lot of help from people dropping passes. We've seen it all over ESPN repeatedly. I don't put all of that on Baker, but that's also, again, that is a very bad Raiders defense, especially in their secondary. I was a little surprised that they didn't try. And I know you couldn't attack 40 yards downfield, but you can attack 10, 15 yards downfield. And they didn't. So, a little bit of the game plan failing there to me, but also a little bit of Baker failing. And this is sort of who Baker is. I mean, Baker at this point is moving forward. The Browns, I believe, are going to try and be a run-first team that gets some, spike from Baker. And as long as he's comfortable in that role, I mean, that's great. They're going to win some games. I'm just not sure it's going to be the way that so many people had in their mind.
For me, go ahead, Kenner.
No, my bad. Sorry. So you're without one of your top offensive linemen and Teller for the Browns. No OBJ, no Nick Chubb. Of course, Austin Hooper's out. He had, a last-minute surgery just not too long ago. I'm all about making excuses for Baker and the Browns. That's the label I wear, and I wear it proud as far as that's concerned. But with that being said, we still are trying. I have yet to see a game from the Browns that looks the same from one week to the next. They've had the same game plan a few games back when they had won 4 straight, but we've yet to see this team look the same. That's why there's so many question marks about Baker and this Browns team. But they're 5-3 right now, and in that tough division, 5-3, I'll take 5-3 any day heading into this bye week, especially.
Well, and they're right in the thick of it for the wild card, right? Like, that's why I thought Sunday was such a big game, because for both of these teams are going to be battling down the stretch. I think having the tiebreaker is a big deal. The only thing I'd say, though, and I believe everything you just said is a reasonable explanation, but let's also look at the Bengals, who had they were missing 4 offensive linemen. Even the Raiders in this game were missing 2 and a backup. So I think this concept of missing pieces is what every team is dealing with. So, conversely, when you watch the game on Sunday, which team did you think was the better quarterback? Because to me, I watched it and felt like Derek Carr was the better quarterback of those 2 quarterbacks in the game. And he's also dealing with a huge number of offensive line issues, dealing with wide receiver injuries. So I mean, at what point do we look at it and say, well, that's just NFL in 2020, and Baker's got to be better in that situation?
I'm thinking about Baker and his whole career. We're week to week with it. The whole OBJ, he plays better without OBJ. I told Kenner, in the back half of the season, we're going to find out if Baker's a true quarterback or if he's basically Ryan Fitzpatrick, a guy that can win you games and throw up crazy numbers one week and then the very next week throw 4 interceptions. I think he's going to prove which guy he is for the rest of his career these last 8 weeks.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, especially because there's some favorable games on the schedule looking forward for Cleveland. Also, guys, I'm usually the one that comes in and says, well, let's not dip back into the draft because God only knows. How do you know you got something better than that? And the Browns are going to be too good to have a high draft pick this year. But the one thing I will say is that there are going to be quarterbacks that hit the open market this offseason. Like there is a high level of speculation that Matt Ryan is going to be available for trade. And even though it's very complicated, some people think that Carson Wentz could be made available for trade. I don't think that, but some people, around Bristol, they're starting to say, well, could happen. Now, there's contractual complications with that. But, if you start looking across the board and telling me, okay, I got to decide between Baker Mayfield and Matt Ryan, even who we have a pretty good indication Matt's going to be out there. I'm taking Matt Ryan. And then don't sleep on a very under talked about report by Adam Schefter on Sunday that part of the reason Tua was given the starting job now is because the Dolphins, remember from their trade with Houston, have Houston's first round pick. That looks like it could be a top 3 pick in the draft. Right. They want to see what they have in Tua because they may have a shot at Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence. So that also tells us that Tua in that theory could be available next year in trade. So usually I'm not a guy that says, oh, well, let's go back to the draft. This year, I don't think it's just about the draft. I think there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks that are made available to the free agency or trade market that we're not used to seeing.
That's very
Dallas
new.
Cowboys.
That's very new. Josh Rosen was like the first guy to be a casualty of that. And it's looking like Dwayne Haskins is going to be a casualty of that as well. And the possibility of Tua being a casualty of this is fascinating.
Well, and that would not be a statement about Tua. It'd be a statement about the fact, like, it doesn't matter if you think you've got the next really good quarterback. If you end up somehow with the first pick in the draft and you've got a shot at the next John Elway, and that's what people think Trevor Lawrence is, even if you think you've got your guy, do you really pass on the next John Elway? Like, if you're looking at the next 15 years, I don't know that there's a simple answer. It's a reality for everybody that they're trying to figure out. It's that what it looks like today versus what it looks like for 15 years.
We have ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz with us here. You can catch him weeknights right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Spain and Fitz from 7 to 9 p.m. Jason, I'm all about those hot takes, and I have another one right here. Kev, of course, rolls his eyes. You get to see the eye rolling now. That's the best part about this now.
Yes.
So the Dallas Cowboys, we're all about. I know everyone's all about. Okay, they're going to re-sign Dak, or they're going to work on the extension with Dak Prescott. If I'm Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones is getting a little bit older. I think the urgency to win a Super Bowl is obviously should always be there, but I think it's there more apparent now. If you re-sign and extend Dak Prescott, you're putting a lot of money into him, and you have a lot of other holes that you have to fill. If I'm Jerry Jones and I'm the Cowboys and I'm high enough in that draft that all of a sudden Justin Fields is sitting there, I move on from Dak. I draft Justin Fields. I have a great rookie quarterback on a rookie deal, and you have a ton of money, an owner that loves to spend money. The Dallas Cowboys could be flipped like that in a heartbeat. You can't flip this team with Dak right away, but I believe you could if you had a Justin Fields potentially fall in your lap if you're high enough in the draft, a spot that I don't think anyone anticipated the Cowboys to be in. How likely of a scenario is that, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, how likely? If they're sitting with the first 2 pick in the draft, I don't think it's impossible. I will say this. I wouldn't be surprised to see them franchise him again, which is their right, and it's a huge cap number, even in that situation. Because remember, once they franchise him, somebody's going to have to give up 2 number ones to go out and get Dak. Now, would somebody do that? I mean, and that, again, talks to the trickle-down effect. I mean, if you're the Rams and you're trying to figure out what you got in Goff, would you give up 2 number ones to get yourself Dak? Probably. And that means Goff suddenly hits the open market for teams that are looking to figure out who they could have at quarterback. I'd even say I think that Derek Carr is going to be the quarterback of the Raiders for a very long time. Most people don't agree with me. So if somebody like Dak is available, would the Raiders make that move? maybe putting Derek Carr in the open market. But the other side of it is I just always caution everybody when it comes to the draft. Like there was a period where the Buccaneers believed that Jameis was going to be their guy. Titans fans believed that Mariota was their guy after they saw him for a couple of years. Baker was the second coming after his first year. So you dip back into the draft and you take this chance that you have somebody for 1 year, maybe 2 years. Do you have somebody for the next 15? If you're right, heck yeah. If not, it sets your whole franchise back 5 years. Will Jerry Jones take that level of risk? Because you got to give it at least 4, maybe 5 years. And let's remember that the reason the Bears moved up for Mitchell is because they believed he was going to be a star. And now we've all seen how that's played out.
As I send you out, I got to make sure we touch on the Cincinnati Bengals because that's disrespectful of me, the ultimate Bengals hater, just to graze over the Bengals win over the Titans. That's a huge win because it's not just, any win for the Bengals is big right now, but who they beat, no one anticipated them being able to knock off the Titans, and they do. Who did we learn more about this past Sunday? Are we learning that the Titans maybe are not as good as we thought, or are we learning that, okay, the Bengals are just getting better, or are you going to say it's kind of in the middle as far as that's concerned?
Well, look, I'm already the president of the Joe Burrow fan club. I do think he's an epic quarterback, and I think he's going to have a hell of a run. Like, I absolutely believe that. When the play everybody keeps playing in Tennessee, because, for anyone that doesn't know, I lived in Nashville for 20 years, and I got my radio start on Nashville ESPN radio affiliates. So, I talk to Titans fans a bunch. They keep playing the play where everybody thought Burrow was down and they thought they were going to get the sack, and he runs around and gets a big completion over and over and over again. To which I say, did you not see the SEC championship game? That's exactly the look that Georgia had on the sideline saying, what the heck? How did we not get him down? So I think it's a statement how good Joe Burrow is. Conversely, if you look at the Titans this season, the downfall of the Titans is they are the worst thing a football team can be. They play down to bad opponents. They play up to good opponents. So we've seen them look really good in games where they need to look really good at times, but they look bad against bad teams. It's a reason that I have a lot of caution in trying to figure out how good the Titans actually are.
I'm a big Joe Burrow fan, and I love the way Zach Taylor has been using him the last couple weeks, putting him on the move, cutting the field in half, not having him drop back 100 times, minimizing his drop backs, really actually using a running game, even though Joe Mixon has been out, using Giovanni Bernard a lot more in the running game and a quick passing game, everything like that. I give a lot of kudos to Coach Zach Taylor for the way the Bengals have been playing the last couple weeks.
Well, in fairness, I think I've been hard on Coach a couple of times about not looking for balance. It took him a little while to find that balance. And you're right. And the other thing you said that I think is really smart is the rollouts, because just keep in mind for anybody that's watching him, when you do a designed rollout, you're essentially eliminating half the reads. You're only asking him to get through 2, maybe 3 reads on the play. And that makes life so much easier. If you've got an athletic quarterback, it buys him time to make the right read, and it makes him read less. So as long as they can identify that play in pre-snap, it really puts Burrow in a good position. So I'm with you. I think that Coach Taylor's doing a good job, although I say that and I feel Friday Night Lights. But I feel like he's done a very good job over the last few weeks. It just took a little while to find that rhythm.
Full hearts can't lose.
Amen. Best TV show ever. Yeah, no doubt.
All right, Jason, send us out with this. Your top 4 college football. If the college football playoff poll came out today, what would Jason Fitz poll look like? Send us out with that.
If I was a voter, I would go with Clemson number 1. I would go with Ohio State number 2, and I would go with Alabama with the shaky number 3. I think we forgive how bad their defense has been a few times in here. Number 4 is the toughest one. Today, it's Notre Dame. It won't be after Clemson kicks their butt. So I am putting, I'm just hot taking it right there. So I am saying that this is right now, today, this could be the year Cincinnati would then pop up into number 4. And that's, I gotta give a ton of credit to Luke Fickell. I said this on the college football show that I host digitally last week. The reason, we need to remember that Luke Fickell had a shot at a Michigan State job that everybody thought was his dream job. And he said no. To say no to that means, to me, he knew he had something special in Cincinnati that was going to ride hard enough this year that he could either stay or he could go anywhere he wants. I think that Cincinnati has the opportunity to be the AAC's great hope. They have getting that Memphis thing off their back was a huge win. Luke Fickell's got that defense playing great, and that offense is as explosive as any in the country. I think Cincinnati has a real and legit shot at the college football playoff this year. I'd put them in.
Jason Fitz, Sarah Spain host Spain and Fitz weeknights from 7 to 9 p.m. right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Jason, thank you for being flexible. Many Bengals fans thought yesterday that I made up the car crashing into the phone because our phones weren't working. They wanted to call and just blast me, and the phones weren't working. They thought I made it up, but this is proof that we had to do this on video today because our phone lines are down. So there you go.
What? Either way, if it's a conspiracy theory, I appreciate the commitment to it. I think that's strong.
All right, Jason, thanks so much, sir. You have a great week. We'll talk next week.
Thanks, guys.